Flow with the show. Hello. Welcome to the show. This is Flow with the Show, episode number 5. High five. I've got a very special guest with me today. I am Toronto electronic music vocalist Flo Anastasia, and super special guest with me today is Mr. Martin Schober, aka Mefjus, aka award-winning music producer, DJ based in Linz, Austria. Martin, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Nice one. Yeah, thanks for having me. Should be good fun. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm doing okay. It's the summer sunshine is definitely helping the overall vibe, but we've been kind of like still in, Canada's been in lockdown, I think, longer than a lot of other places. So we're just now starting to like go through a new like reopening plan and whatever, but I'm almost like, I want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. It's like, but the summer sunshine is great.
Nice. Yeah, the whole Rona thing has been completely occupying everyone all the time, isn't it? Like, if you talk to whoever, it's like, after 2 sentences and Rona, this and that. Yeah. Okay. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, and then I guess one cool thing though is maybe not cool, but I think years from now, this will be one of those experiences that like we've all had, and it'll be like, hey, remember when we went through Corona? Like it's like the uniting struggle.
Yeah, definitely. If you think about it, like every generation, like you said, had this big thing like World War I, World War II, whatever, Cold War, whatever. And I think this is going to be our thing. And I'm curious how we're going to look back on this. It's going to be an interesting one, I think.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I truly hope it doesn't get worse. It's one of those, like, there's always bad news, and yet I don't know. As you can tell, I'm kind of I try to look on the bright side, but not too, like, overbearingly, like, let's be positive.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be realistic, right? You can't be the clown and just run around, everything is awesome, and, just be realistic with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I do have some questions for you. I know most people probably ask you about like, how do you get your snare so sick and like sound design, like, kind of questions. But, I'm not a music producer, and I am very interested in like, just like people's kind of life stories and human psychology and all that kind of thing. But my first really deep question for you, Martin, okay? So all of the press releases and bios and write-ups about you always mention the schnitzel. What is the deal, and is it as good as it sounds?
Well, honestly, I don't know when it started, to be completely honest with you. I mean, it's been a thing with me and my friends since I'm like 15 years old. I don't know why. My last name is Schober, right? And like, for instance, my older brother, in his sort of friend circle or whatever, they call him Shizzle, Okay. And from Schober to Shizzle. And Shizzle and Schnitzel is not too far away, like phonetically, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So that has been around forever. So sometimes I would call, like, he would be called Schnitzel or whatever. Shizzle. It's weird, man. And then, in addition to all that, obviously the Austrian cuisine is very much Schnitzel based, or it is a big, if you go to Vienna, whoever you're going to talk to, and what do you eat? Like, what should I order here in Vienna? Like, I think 9 out of 10 would tell you, schnitzel. And so it's pretty much like an Austrian thing. Personally, I eat it, but I don't eat it as much as it might be conveyed through interviews and media. I'm not like, for breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
But to be fair, though, I do like it, and it's very much, I would say, a thing you would eat when you're with your family, and if it's Father's Day or whatever, and you go out with your family and you see your cousins and shit, then you would probably in a nice restaurant, not too nice, in a super fancy place, you wouldn't order schnitzel. It's just it's just right in the middle in terms of where you want to order it. And I don't know. Some people just took the whole fun thing like completely overboard, and like some of the Dutch guys, I mean, there's there's one fan or a dude who comes to my sets when I play in Holland, and he actually brings a fucking schnitzel in a sit bag thing in his front row and doing this shit. So, you know.
Okay, so I'm not gonna put schnitzel lover in like your bio in the write-up.
And you could do it. It wouldn't be a lie. I don't hate it, but it's not like I'm it is good. It's good stuff, and I represent that shit definitely.
Excellent.
It's one of those stereotypes, isn't it? Like, that Austrians eat schnitzel. I think that's a stereotype, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm asking, because I feel like it's I see it so often, and I was like, oh, it's funny. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so you don't have like wallpaper in your room that's like just schnitzel.
Right, yeah.
Okay, got it. So that's been cleared up. The controversy. Nice.
What about you? What is your favorite dish in Toronto or whatever?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think
it's like poutine, right? Would be the stereotypical equivalent to you, right?
That
is being from Canada, I think, right? That would be the thing.
I would say like poutine is more like a Montreal, Quebec kind of thing, like in French Canada, the poutine. So good call on that one, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's funny because how I view sort of Toronto and maybe Canada as a whole is that because it's so multicultural, I think that Canada versus maybe other places in the world does struggle a little bit with like what is our identity, because it's almost like the identity is the multiculturalism. And so you go through all these like different neighborhoods in Toronto, and one street is like all Jamaican food, and then another is all like Chinese food and that sort of thing. So for me, if I were to like I guess like indulge in something, I do really like kind of like hummus and like shawarma kind of stuff, like Middle Eastern.
Nice.
When I was little, I was born in Ukraine, and then we moved to Israel and lived in Israel for a few years, and then moved to Toronto from there. And so there is a lot of kind of like some Middle Eastern vibes in my mom's cuisine, and so I definitely grew up just like really liking hummus. So
cool.
Pita and hummus is like very good.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that. It's good stuff. Nice.
Yeah, man. Speaking of, I guess, like, just kind of, like, childhood and growing up, I would, if you're comfortable, I'd love to hear a little bit more about, like, baby Mefjus. Like, what was your childhood like? What were you like kind of growing up in Austria and that sort of thing?
So I got an older brother. He's 4 years older. And so I was born and raised in the city, in Linz. And then when I was 2, my parents moved to the countryside, more or less. They built a house there. So cool. I grew up there in a town called Al-Haming. Really small. I think 1,000 people live here.
Wow.
And I went to school there, and then pretty much grew up there until I was like 16, 17, 18. Moved out when I was 18 to a city called Wels. That's where I studied back then. Moved in with a couple of friends. And then start university on the side, and didn't finish university. I was always like, I didn't really, I don't know. I did like a technical college before that, which was a school for programming, PLCs. It's very specific. It's like if you imagine industrial line, like Mercedes-Benz, for instance, when the robots built those cars together, the intelligence behind those robots, that's what we would program basically. So you program machines, not like computers.
Wow.
And that's what I did as a technical college sort of education. And after that, I studied the same thing on university. And I was just sitting in there, I was like, fuck, this is the same shit all over again. And I was so not bored. I need to do something else. And by that time, I was already making music. And that's when I decided to not finish university and just grab a quick job in that field that I was already studying, because I was not bad at my job. I just didn't feel like I wanted to do it for the rest of my life. So I did it for 2 years, and I was making more beats on the side because I just needed some money to get some good speakers and a good computer and stuff. And then after 2 years, I think, I quit that job again. And then since then, I've been full-time musician. So a producer or DJ, whatever you call it. And that's that. I realized I did jump quite quickly from being in Mef to where I am now. But, there's not much to say about the early days, I guess. Quiet childhood, really.
So, I mean, I think it makes sense that if I could say, like, your music is very smart, if I can, I don't know if that's, like, a way to describe music, but for me, I think that's always something that, like, really, like, stood out to me is that, like, I don't know, just, like, it's very, like, I want to say, like, kind of scientific, and I love that you kind of, like, push the edges across all the different kind of facets of, like, sound design. This is me talking about music as, like, a non-producer, you can tell. Like,
I take it as a compliment. Yeah. Thanks, very nice.
Because, you know, I think, I just, I think it's one of the things that really made me gravitate towards your music, and I can tell just by all your, you know, the care that you put into your music projects and that kind of thing. There is so much thought and, like, passion and effort that's put into it, and you know, these projects end up becoming so, like, monumental, and you can tell why. Like, you're really trying very hard. I find that sometimes. You know, I don't know, like, it just comes across. I guess sometimes I'll hear music where, and to be fair, you know, I know that a lot of people are just starting out, but sometimes I'll hear music that sounds like it's, like, entirely made from, like, a sample pack, and there's maybe just, like, 3 layers, and there is something to be said about simplicity, but in the case that I'm talking about, it's just very, like, okay, this took maybe, like, 20 minutes, and, like, just, I don't know.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, yeah. And I think what you said in the beginning about the music being intelligent, I take as a compliment, but I always felt like the way I think is very analytical and very structured because of my previous education, and I think that also reflects, I think, in music sometimes, pragmatism sometimes as well, as analytical and formulated, and try to look at music sometimes from a formula point of view as well, you know, because there's certain things that are variables and there's certain things that are constants in music, especially in drum and bass, and that's just how my brain works. I don't know, maybe that's how that's the way it translates then in the end. I don't know.
Well, no, I definitely I have very, like, I don't know, have you ever seen the movie A Beautiful Mind?
Yes,
and
sure.
It's all, like, the wall is, like, you know, there's things connecting, and he's, like, seeing patterns, and he's like, the patterns and everything. Like, that's how I think about music sometimes too. And
definitely.
I think it's definitely very helpful because I think it does, like, kind of, like, push you're kind of pushing to get better. But then there are times where I sometimes have to, like, step back and be like, okay, I'm just, like, overthinking this, and it doesn't have to be this, like, you know, scientific, like, perhaps I can just try to think of something where maybe it's a little bit more of a, for me in regards to vocals, like something where somebody can actually maybe sing along to instead of a melody that's like really, like, you know,
super technical all over the place. Yeah, I get that. And you said it as well before, like, simplicity is great. Like, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, I think. It's just, if you really nail that, that's the, you know, ideally, if you create something, you don't want people to need 3 weeks to study that shit to get their head around, right? Like, in an ideal world, you hear something or you see something and you instantly get, this is sick, you know?
Yes.
But yeah, it's easier said than actually executed sometimes.
Can I ask you, so about your, like, engineering background, I thought in my head, and I don't know if this is real, it's one of those, like, memories that maybe is a false memory, and then I went to, like, research it and I couldn't find any information about it. Did you have, like, a patent or something? I thought in my mind that maybe you did, like, you made some sort of engineering patent. No? Okay.
No, not at all. No. I was simply the guy who executed the job, basically on you know, in front of the machine, basically just programming it and see how it works. I did a job, for instance, in Detroit actually, and for I think it was General Motors, like a small conveyor belt with some other shit, and literally they just give you a laptop, your backpack, a visa for 4 weeks, and it's just you go over there and you make this shit work. Okay, and then you just execute basically.
Oh, super cool, man.
Well, I think it sounds cooler than it is actually. You're pretty much that guy who sits in front of a big, like, in a warehouse in front of a big machine. It's loud and dirty and everything. And at the end of the day, you know, it's fine when the product goes from A to B to C or whatever, but it doesn't really give you a lot of pleasure or, you know, it is what it is.
Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. So if that doesn't bring you pleasure, kind of growing up, did you were you playing instruments? Like, I'm curious how you got into music. Like, did you think that it was something that was like a dream of yours, or was it just like for fun? Like, how did that kind of all come about?
Yeah, my mom has always been very, very musical. She plays the guitar and she sings, and she's always involved in sort of church choir stuff and that sort of thing. She's very religious, and she's always involved with this community. For Christmas, they would do like a little play with the kids and stuff. And she used to do the sing circle with kids as well. And it's not indoctrinating anyone or forcing someone down his thing. She's very liberal and very alternative when it comes to her beliefs, but she believes, like, she loves that shit. So she was always with her guitar and everything. And my dad, he's very similar I'm very similar to him, I guess. He just always takes the piss and is funny, and like for Christmas he would play the flute and stuff, and he's very intuitive with music instruments. He can't read notes or anything, but you give him a flute, he will play that shit. Or if you give him something else, he would just play around a little bit and just have fun with it. And that's how I always felt about music as well. And I did play instruments. I played the trumpet for like 5 years or something like that.
Okay.
And but then when I was like 14 or 15, I quit because the music school where I went to. So I did a music school on the side, like as a 10-year-old or whatever, parallel to the regular school. And when Mom was driving me there to this music school thing, there was a skate park next to it. And when I became like I don't know, like 13, 14, 15, when I picked up skateboarding, I always thought, like, I don't want to go play trumpet, I want to go out and skate. Yeah. And that's how the whole trumpet playing came to an end. And I wanted to hang with the cool kids, not be the lame fucking trumpet playing.
So I played trumpet too, and
sick.
I was also very lame.
Yeah.
Can we expect to hear trumpet in some of your future music productions?
You know what? For my first debut album, Emulation, I did buy a trumpet, a very cheap one, just to be able to, provide some of my really origin sound-wise. And I did record a lot with it, but I didn't end up using it because it's just, it's such a direct sound. It's really hard to record as well. And then I had a couple of notes and stuff. And a trumpet is monophonic, so you can play your riff, and if you want to have a chord, you have to play the next note, etc. And then I had troubles layering it, and then I was like, fuck it, I use Contact, fuck that shit, literally like that. And so I still get it here. It's a cheap replica of a good trumpet, but I haven't really used it since. I think I used it for one piss take press pick with Camo and Crooked 2 years ago, but that's it really.
Okay, so if not trumpet, is there any risk that you will leave drum and bass and become a professional skateboarder?
No, I'm way too bad for that. No. Because I mentioned Camo and Crooked before. Camo, Ryan, he's really insanely good at skateboarding. And so last week we went on a trip together. We brought our boards and we went to this one skate park. And he just rips. He's 37. He still rips. It's amazing how talented he is. And I'm so shit compared to him, so there's no worries about me. And I'm way too old now as well. I'm turning 33 this year, so I'm like, I feel like an old guy at the skate park. I am the old guy at the skate park now, so it's fucking ridiculous.
Well, you look a lot younger. I'm actually 30. I'm turning 32 soon as well. So we can still be the cool kids. Right.
Well, I don't know. Like if you talk to like 16 and 17-year-olds at the skate park, you really feel old because you could be their parent essentially. So I'm like, you know what? It's just I made my peace with it. I'm the old guy at the skate park. Fuck it. I'm that guy who always thought when I was younger, fuck that guy. He's so old. He should go home or die or some shit. No, one of those ones.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think you're very cool, and perhaps you could be like the wise old, not the wise old, the wise man at the.
No, and you went there for a reason. The wise old man.
Sorry, that just came out.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so that's awesome. So skate park ended, trumpet kind of stuff, and I know that your brother had a big influence on you. I remember seeing some of your like throwback photos of like you and your brother, like some like old computers, and I love that stuff. So was he like into music production as well, or how did that kind of, what was his like influence on you, and like did you learn music production from him, or you just playing around?
Yeah, definitely, and he still makes music, and so I'll go from now to the past, like that way makes more sense. So he's still, he's got his own sound system. They did before Rona, like outdoor events, free events for people, and he got his crew, and they're how to say, he's not, I mean, he's very in the anti-commercial world. He always tries to do free stuff and like that, which I really respect and really like. So they would travel around and do their free parties or whatever. And he was also the guy who brought me into drum and bass when I was like 18. No, must have been younger, like 16 or 17, something like that. So he's 4 years older. So he went out to shows, and he's like, "Martin, you have to come with me sometime. I think you're gonna like this shit." And I went out. I was like, "The fuck." Yeah. And the way I got into music was like my dad always was buying those PC magazines. Like back then. The internet was really slow, so you couldn't really download stuff. There was no YouTube and stuff. So if you were into tech stuff, you would buy magazines, right? Yeah. And those magazines had little CDs attached with demo versions of this and that, like Photoshop or whatever. And at one time he came home with this CD having music software on it, Reason, Propeller, it's Reason 1. Yeah, and he popped it in, or my brother popped it in, and he was just playing around with it. And I had back then, I must have been even younger, because I had no understanding of how this could work. As in, you're in front of a computer and you can make sound. It was like one of those moments, like why is this even working? Like what? And then I was sitting next to my brother, and he was explaining me, and you can, the sequencer goes from here to here, and then if you press that, the noise comes out. And I was like, okay, shit. Well, and then there was the first like experience with DAW. And that then made me so interested in that sort of stuff that I just continued working with that. My brother was making beats back then, and he also he was in a hip hop formation. He was an MC, so I was making beats for him back then. And he's still making music to this day. He's got his own MPC at home, and he's very experimental with stuff. And he never took the commercial route, because, as I mentioned earlier, he's very much like an open spirit and like one of those super open-minded, open spiritual people. And this is how it sort of came together. And
Wow. I love hearing about that. Like just your like impression of this like happening when it was so new. I think it's very beautiful, Martin.
Yeah, and it was very strange to experience that, and now that you can reflect on that, and it became a job and stuff like that. But I remember when we were doing this, I couldn't get it into my head how this works, and then you start to connect all the dots. When you see then a commercial having music in the background, okay, they made that music for that. Or when you go and see a concert and you see people playing, and you're like, oh, okay, so I can make that sound within my computer with limitations, though, due to technical limitations like CPU or RAM or whatever. And it was just, everything came together in a way, and that also really sparked the interest in technology and stuff like that. So it was sort of a, self-feeding machine in a way that sparked the interest for technology and music.
Wow. Okay, so hip hop as well. I know that's that's cool that you were like making beats for your brother as an MC, and I know that over the last several years you've been working closely with our boy Maxim MC. I know that he's like MC'd for you at your shows. I know you guys have your Ezekiel's Gift hip hop project, and his voice has graced a lot of your drum and bass productions as well. I'm so curious about how the story of how you met Max.
Wow, Max hit me up. I think it must have been 2011 or 2012, something like that. I think he hit me up on SoundCloud, if I remember correctly.
Nice.
And I mean, back then, SoundCloud was one of those platforms where you could actually meet people and connect with people.
Yeah.
And so he hit me up, saying something along those lines of, "Hey, dude, I like it. I like your music, your drum and bass stuff. I also read somewhere that you're into hip hop." And he sent me an EP he just released. It was the Gone West EP, and he sent me, and he was like, "Yeah, check it out. You might like it. Let's talk at some point." And he sent me that. And it was totally my jam. You know, the beats were sick. His verses were sick. And I think then we made Struggle and Pain together, like in the same year even, I think. Track, I think it was 2012, released on Chris Renegade's label. What's it called? Was it Breathe 12 Inches, something like that? Was it? I can't remember. I did a track with Maxim, which came out 2012. A track called Struggle and Pain. That was our sort of first collaboration together. And it was cool. And we've been in contact ever since. And he's such a sick dude. And like you said, we've been working on several projects since then, and I've included him on every album because we talk a lot about politics and general, like, we're the same age and we have so many things in common. But, I'm sitting here in Austria, he sits in London. There's always different points of views to be discussed. And then he's a very interesting and very smart person to talk to. And like you said, we have been working on a sort of joint hip hop album now for quite some while. And it's coming to a sort of a finishing phase at the moment. And to add, you did some vocals for us as well, so that's something we should also talk about. I think how did it work? I think we had the song pretty much written, and then we felt like, we need a good vocalist, like a female vocalist on it, and that's why we approached you, and then you smashed it, and I can't wait to share it to with people. The project, our song specifically as well. And I think your voice is a really good addition to Max's voice as well. So that really works for me. And maybe you can tell us something about the collab as well, about this Ezekiel's Gift sort of thing.
Thanks, man. I've been keeping very quiet. It's like my biggest. I wasn't sure if I should talk about it on this podcast, but of course I want to shout about it to the world. I mean, your feedback on my voice and stuff is so nice. I can't. It's very surreal for me to hear you say that, and I definitely very much felt like a vibe with Maxim as well. So it's cool that you sort of feel that like our voices go well together. Just like as generally like as a person and as an artist, I definitely feel like we probably have a lot in common. And he's also one of those people that I've never met in person, but you just kind of sometimes you just kind of, I guess you resonate more with some people more than others. I think it's really cool that you guys live in two different countries and are so collaborative and like work together so much. I can't believe you met on SoundCloud. I thought for sure maybe you like met at a show or like something, but SoundCloud is like the story is like my like origin story on so many things. Like starting out, I made my like at Flow Anastasia SoundCloud like in like 2011 or 2012 or something like that, and that's where I think like everything really started to grow for me, and just the like meeting other people. All of my first like collabs in the first 4 or 5 years that I was doing vocals were all just people from SoundCloud from different countries. I didn't end up collaborating with anybody in Toronto until like years later. So it's also funny that like
how absurd. Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And then, more recently, and maybe you already know this, but I'd met my vocal engineer and partner Tier Kahoot on SoundCloud as well. And
Sick
it was
guy.
one of those things.
Sick dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he's working with him and having him record and process my vocals has been like complete game changer, because before that I was recording in my bedroom, bought condenser microphone that shows my deep knowledge of vocal production. Bought a condenser microphone and thought like, okay, now I'm a professional, like, learned what phantom power is and like thought like that was it. And surely like that was not. But yeah, working with him has been a total game changer. And the way that I met him as well actually was, which I always kind of think is funny, is I was listening to like an all Canadian drum and bass mix, and it was one of those moments of like, sometimes if you're listening to like a stream or a mix or radio, or you'll hear a song and then it's like, oh, what's that specific song? And you have to like look you have to like look at the track list and find it. It doesn't happen with every song you hear, but sometimes you'll hear a song and I'm like, oh, what is this? And then knowing that it was a Canadian producer as well, I was like, oh, okay, this is really sick. So looked him up, never seen his name before, followed him on SoundCloud, he followed me back a couple days later, sent me a DM, and then like went from there. So big up SoundCloud is the message here.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if people are still using it, but definitely back then it was definitely the way to go and connect with people. It was awesome.
Yeah, I almost want to do like a rest in peace SoundCloud, unfortunately, because it was certainly, I mean, I think it was, I guess, around at a time where it filled a gap in the market maybe or something like that.
Absolutely,
and now there's just so many.
Purpose.
So thank you, SoundCloud, for your service. Goodbye.
Big up SoundCloud.
Okay, I'd love hearing how you met Maxim, and I do want to ask you, so the last year has been really brutal with COVID. We're going to talk about COVID. Here we go.
Of course, bring it on. Dude, fair enough.
I know it's been extra brutal for people like you working like in the music industry, and you DJ as well. And so, how's it been? How have you been?
Yeah, I mean, it came to, it was it was a shock, obviously, everyone was like, this is really happening, wow, and everything is getting cancelled. And I remember it was around, it was October 19, just before Rona. I was in LA for 2 or 3 weeks with some friends skating and just hanging out, and I came back. And I was really, really sick. I was in bed for like 3 or 4 weeks with a lung infection. It was horrible. And it took me a month to get back on my feet, basically. Like I lost like 7 kilos and I was like really in terrible shape. And back then I was already talking to Marcus Crooked, and he's always well aware about what's going on in the world. And he told me, yeah, dude, you might have had coronavirus. And I'm like, that's the first time I heard something like that word coronavirus. Like, what is that? And then I was like reading up, and I was like, oh, in Asia, there's a virus going around and shit like that. I didn't have it. It was just, the introduction into that sort of topic. And then I remember around New Year's Eve, he told me again, dude, did you check the links I sent you? I was like, yeah, just barely, and da-da-da. And he said, dude, this is going to come over to Europe in a couple of months, and it's going to fuck us up. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. It's so far away. It's like Ebola as well. It was so close with Ebola as well that we were so fucked, but luckily. Anyhow, and then in March, I played my last international show, 28th of February, I think. No, even March 2020. I played a show in Russia. And that was the last thing I did with Maxim as well. And we shared a backstage with a crew from Bologna, from Italy. And they were already like, guys, in Italy, it's happening, man. Like, people are dying and this and that. And I was like, fuck me, this is really happening. And then a week after that, everything is shut. Shows canceled left and right and this and that. And lockdown, obviously, all that. Like, I mean, it must have been similar for you. Like, the first lockdowns were like, or the first lockdown itself was just like, the streets were empty. There was no car. There was no one outside. Everyone was super scared. And it was so surreal, wasn't it? And, that whole, I don't know, dystopian sort of vibe compared with losing all the jobs, all the gigs. My calendar was full back then for the rest of the year pretty much. And no one could tell you how long it's going to be. And, everyone in the beginning was thinking, we're going to, lose the second quarter, maybe the summer, and then, fall and winter, we're back.
Yeah.
Boy, we were wrong. Oh, boy, And I don't know. In the beginning, I was really, really devastated. I was like, fuck, I was at this point in my career, which I still am because it's just paused, but like in my headspace, I was really, I don't know, I had this feeling that I need to prove something at this like specific time. Like I was really not doubting myself, but I felt like, album came out a year or 2 years before that. So I need to make the next moves. And I had a lot of music sort of semi-written. I had ideas lying around, and usually you go out, DJ, meet people, talk to people, use the travel time to listen to music, and it's a very strange sort of cycle you're in. And if you're not traveling, if you don't meet up with people, if you can't play out your music, all of that is stopped as well. So the creative process in the beginning was completely gone for me, and that was really getting to me. I was like, why am I even doing this? And then you start to self-doubt, like, what am I doing with my life? I'm 32 now. I'm sitting at home. I can't make the music I like to. What music do I actually make? I make club music. It doesn't have any value really. It feels a bit plasticky. So it was a big maybe a bit of a depression even, I don't know. But then I realized, dude, you've been touring for 8 years pretty much straight. You got some time off now, dude. Chill the fuck out, And then I just completely flipped the script in my head. I was like, cool, I can go out, I can be in the sun and stuff. and I was really like, picking up especially the project with Max, even more so. I was like, yeah, cool. This feels right now. I can now like really finish those beats, mix his vocals. He was in recording state as well back home, so he was just grinding a lot. Summer was sick, and all the lockdowns and openings aside, and this and that. Now we came out the other way stronger, and now it looks like as we've made it. I don't know. I mean, the UK is still struggling a bit with this Delta variant, with this Indian sort of variant that is really, it's hard on them. As in, I think they had the final opening steps scheduled for June 21st, which are now moved back by a month. Yeah. And now the rest of Europe sort of, started to get the vaccination process going. And now we actually... Whole Europe is pretty much good now with the infection rates going down. Okay. Everyone is getting vaccinations and shit. And now we're at this state again where the UK is red listing the European Union. The European Union is red listing the UK. There's no travel allowed. Like Austria is now banning aircrafts from the UK. So now we are allowed to play our festival shows in Austria. Or in Europe again, but the UK guys can't come over and vice versa. And now it feels a bit like a proxy sort of post-Brexit bullshit, as well. Mm. So, yeah. I mean, long story short, it was fucking horrendously annoying, but for everyone. I mean, so many people died, so many people lost someone, so I don't even want to complain. Like, now I'm at this point where I'm like, it is what it is. Luckily, I didn't get it, so I'm fucking thanks Jesus, thanks mom for putting in the word for me or whatever. Like they are down, but I mean, our industry suffered big time, and now it's important that we get out again, I think, and be smart about it. Wear a mask, wash your hands, hold the distance, don't be a prick about it. Just play by the rules, do your thing, and then it will get better eventually. So. Yeah, long rant. Sorry.
No, please. I mean, I think you're right in the thick of it. You know what I mean? It's music wasn't just kind of like your hobby or side hustle. So I just really wanted to. Man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's brutal, man.
Yeah, I mean, and added to the whole emotional and creative situation that it was in terms of negative. Obviously, the whole financial side of it is horrendous. You realize that you're so depending on touring. Your income, at least my main income, like 90% of my income is touring, and that's one thing I could take out of this whole pandemic, and that's why came on Crocodile, for instance. We put our heads together and started a company together for music production, for ghostwriting and stuff, mixing, mastering. So there have been some positive things that you can take out of that. Being completely on hold there for a year and a half, it makes you think outside the box a little bit. It makes you start projects that you wouldn't dare think about because you're in the circle that I mentioned earlier, where you're just grinding studio live or whatever. So that was good. And I'm just trying, like in retrospect, I'm just trying to look at the positive things. We got a break, you had some time to reflect on stuff. You had time to do stuff that you wouldn't do otherwise. And I think health and family and all that, those values got a bigger part now in all our lives, I think, which is also good.
Yeah, 100%. Oh man, well, it's you have a really great perspective. I think that's really commendable. That's you went through a lot of really brutal stuff, and I can't. Yeah, I think a depression kind of thing is a very that's probably. I'd be surprised if something like that didn't happen. You know what I mean? Especially if this was over after the first few months, then that's one thing. But yeah, just this whole of not knowing how long it's going to be, and even now there's still all these kind of repercussions and changes happening, and it's really cool to hear that you've been able to pivot and I guess start different kinds of projects. I definitely wish you the best with that. I think that's super cool if people can get their tracks mixed and mastered by Mefjus, hello.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't really super announced it because it's still a side thing, and we don't want to, we don't necessarily want to use our drum and bass channels to push that because, you're instantly again in your bubble, and we want to branch out of that. That's why we use the new name and everything like that. And but yeah, it's you have to do something, right? And just try and you hold, grasp those positive things that are in front of you, and just, deal with it.
100%.
There's no point of sticking your head into the sand. And there's people way worse, having way more difficult problems or situations than we have. A good friend of mine, she got long COVID now, and she got her infection in, I think, September, October. She's 28 and she still suffers from that shit. She can't work, and she's completely naked all the time. She's in the hospital right now as well, and she's 28. She got infected. It's just so, so many people are suffering, so there's no point of us, having first world problems of not having a show on. That's how I try to reflect myself into, we're all healthy, and let's move on.
Same. Okay, so moving on, here's a controversial deep question for you, okay? All right. Aliens, what do you think?
I 100,000% think in our universe there are multiple species that are as evolved or even more evolved than we are. I know the Drake equation says something different, but I'm pretty certain just by the vast space, and I'm pretty sure that there's someone out there. But, I think you're referring to those recent things in the US where there's aircrafts and stuff moving around. And I think...
Even before that, I sometimes think about aliens.
Yeah, specifically those things in America, I think that's just military tech that they're testing out. But yeah, I do think at this point, while we're talking, there's a little alien or big alien. There's definitely life forms out there, 100%. I truly believe that. I know science is saying something different, but I don't know. We can't be that egoistic to think that we're the only fucking species that sort of randomly was put together. I don't think so. No.
All right, you heard it here
first.
What
about you? Now I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. It's one of those things, I think when I was a little kid, I was a little bit scared of the idea. And then, whatever, X-Files TV shows or whatever would make me freaked out about it. But lately, in the last few years, it's just kind of funny, but it's something that's sometimes helped me, get some perspective of, because I also think about things on a very spiritual level, but then if I put the alien lens on it, it's a little bit more the practical, because it's hard to describe, spiritual feelings and meanings and things like that. But then when I think about just the practical thought of galaxies and universes and all this unexplored stuff and the possibility of living beings and all that kind of thing, it helps me remember first world problems of, I missed the bus or whatever. It's there's some really amazing, mysterious, cool stuff out there that we have no idea. There's so much unknown. Life is so much larger than we, kind of feel 100%. Sometimes. So it, I don't know, it gives me awe and wonder. Maybe I should be a little bit more scared. I don't know, but I look at it as I just think it's pretty cool.
I couldn't agree more. And for me, it sometimes really takes the pressure off when you think about how insignificant we are. We're having the those fucking like dramas and think everything is so bad.
Yeah.
We are so insignificant on the large scale of the universe or even our solar system. We're so ridiculously insignificant. It doesn't even matter what we do. I mean, you know, obviously be nice to people and treat the planet and everything, because that's how we got it and that's how we should give it further. But, you know, in terms of, my career is over. Who the fuck cares, man? You're like a blink of a thing. Your existence doesn't matter at all. And that sometimes can be scary as well. It's like, why do we even get out of bed in the morning? But also you can, you know, put it into perspective and just take the edge off and the stress off a little bit, because you know our existence doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, I think it's I'm kind of surprised to hear what you said earlier, which is like, you know, sometimes you'll have the feelings of like what am I doing with my life? I certainly get that all the time. I'm surprised to hear you say that, because you are, you know, so accomplished. But then of course in the face of COVID, I can understand why you'd have those kinds of feelings. But hopefully, like, to anyone who's like listening or watching this podcast, that'll be like a nice source of, like, I guess, positive inspiration of even you sometimes feel like that, and you're, you know, trying to figure out ways to pivot and adapt. I think one of my favorite quotes, I don't know who this is by, but once in a while it comes up in my mind, and I definitely really helps me keep going, which is, it's not the strongest who survive, but the most adaptable to change. And I think about that a lot.
Very interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like in like wildlife and that kind of thing, and animals and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Yeah. I guess so I do have one music production question for you, and then maybe I'll let you go. Your time is very valuable. So thank you again so much for being here.
It's fine.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you at least one music production techie question.
Hit me with the Cues and snares questions.
What exact frequency is the optimal? No.
I was actually waiting for the question.
Oh, really?
I was like, yeah, okay,
Usually I just throw in like words that I've heard used in sound design and hope it means something. No, I had one of my friends, shouts to producer Henri, he knew that I was going to be speaking with you today, and he had a question for you about how do you approach in a music track keeping the like energy building or moving and momentum and that kind of thing. How do you approach that in a track?
Yeah, it's a good question. Excuse me. So, random side note, because I was talking to this just last week. I'm doing some tutoring now as well for a university in Salzburg. They got this multimedia and arts is this direction of the university, and I know the one of the professors there, and he asked me if I could give him some lectures and tutoring.
Awesome.
You know, as being from the industry and being in the sort of thing, and they got a lot of like electronic producers there, if I can help him out doing some lectures. So I'm doing this right now. And last week we had a discussion about exactly that, because the course I'm doing now is arrangement and composition, and the question came up like, how do you structure? Where do you build up? Where do you break down? And how do you get certain energies going, or how do you provide energy to certain parts? And it's always about contrasts. That's what I told them as well. And you know, you can have the sickest drop if the moments lining up to the drop don't work in the right way. It won't work. It's very obvious, but you have to think about it as well. And this is. It's very hard to put down into one sentence, because you could look into, from a song perspective, where you got intros, breakdowns, and drops in terms of energy. You can go even smaller into 16 bars. You know, a 16-bar phrase in itself would have like an answer bit, a question and an answer bit, and this and that. And then you can look at the 4-bar loop maybe, and you can have a look at that, like how are the elements structured in there. And then you can go into 1-bar loop and look at the energy of that. You know, where's the kick versus snare? Why does it bounce off each other? So, but I think the overall answer to this is just contrasts, and always the comparison of, if you think about it as an interface, like this is the area you're talking about. So it's about coming into that area and going into the next area. So those transitional points are very, very significant. Could be from hi-hat to the next kick, but also can be from the build up to the drop, if you know what I mean. So it's always about those moments, and those transitions have to be right. And that can be, the build up to a drop, as I said earlier, or just a gap at the end of 8 bars to be able to go into the next second 8 sort of thing. Hang on, my phone is ringing.
No worries.
Fuck off. And so yeah, it was I don't know, it's a bit of a spiritual thing. Within drum and bass, there's certain formulas you can obviously apply, intro, breakdown, drop, second 16 more reduced, third 16. You could do it as a mixing part to just mix out of, or you can have the first 16 put over there with some variations, and then fourth 16, maybe not too long, breakdown, sort of think about how the first drop was, change that, and then have the second drop similar to the first drop, maybe change some stuff there. So it's like a bit of a puzzle piece where you can move around stuff to make it work. That would be the very pragmatic approach, but you can also go balls out and just not have a second drop, or just make a musical interpretation of the theme in the second drop. So there's multiple ways. I don't know.
I love that. Thank you.
Many words.
Thank you. No, that's excellent. I think that will be very helpful to a lot of people. It's just really cool to get your professional insights. So thank you very much for that. I really love what you said as well about contrast and that kind of thing. I do see so much spiritual kind of meaning in that kind of thing, and it just also makes me think of this is maybe cheesy to say, but the contrast of COVID and just dark times in general.
100%, absolutely. That's why we got day and night in our lives. You can't have the same status quo all the time. Then it's why even, you need, yin and yang or whatever. I'm not super spiritual when it comes to that, didn't want to go there, but it is what it is. Just nature is telling us there has to be two sides of everything. Yeah. That's why fucking you flip a coin, it got two sides. There's so many parallels. And I think that, we grow up in this environment, so we're so used to this A, B, black, white sort of thing. Obviously, you used it in music to make that point that we want to hear in a way. And one addition to that energy thing for your friend specifically, which also goes down the path of contrast, a tip: if you make a song, a very analog sounding song with a lot of analog gear, Foley's and stuff like that, maybe think about the contrast and stick in a very obvious electronic sound in there, like a proper sawtooth electronica thing to make the contrast. Other way around as well, if you're super nerdy and you make all your snares with Serum and everything is synthesized, maybe stick a Foley in there, have a sample in there with some dirt on it. Maybe have a Foley string with some noise on it and stuff like that. Saturate that and get those natural harmonics in there. Yes. Again, make the contrast from the synthetic stuff to the organic stuff. That's always your ear is gonna go oh yeah, this is sick, man. Keep doing that, so do that. It always helps.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that's one of the most favorite things that I loved about drum and bass when I first discovered drum and bass and really got me into it was the ability to have both electronic and I guess more analog sounds. And I remember some of the first albums that I heard was John B had those early albums where he literally called one, I think was called Synthetic, and the other was I think just all live instruments. I can't remember what it was called, but and then of course a lot of the music is together. And I just remember because I also grew up listening to a lot of jazz, and I loved that in drum and bass I could hear some upright bass and that kind of thing, but then sick electronic atmospheres and elements and that sort of thing. So I would say that's one of my favorite things about the genre, when you're able to do something like that.
Yeah.
Oh man. Really, really great talking to you. I could honestly talk to you for another hour, but I want to give you your time back. I'd like to ask you one last question.
Sure.
Bit of a kind of a cheesy question, I know, but if you could speak to yourself as a kid, what piece of advice would you give to yourself, or something that you kind of wish you were told or that you learned early on?
That's a very good question. Wow. I mean, wow, there's so many right answers and so many wrong answers to that. I don't know. Maybe just give the little dude some perspective on what values are truly important. But then again, you could say that from being 33, my value point of view is different from a child's point of view. So if you give a child, your value, that's why kids and parents don't see eye to eye, right? So it's very hard to give that little kid an opinion or a tip that will really impact him or her at that time of her life or his life. But I would say so, like just the way my parents taught me, my brother, just be respectful to others and just try to stay real to yourself and just try to be a decent human being. Just tell the little dude that this is really what it's all about at the end of the day. Because, as we said earlier, our existence is pretty much insignificant. So the only thing you can really do is to, not be a dick to others. I think personally, just be decent, dude, I guess. And maybe tell him how to synthesize snares so he can do that early on and shit and really smash it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Martin. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. This was extra cool because
Likewise.
I know, I've chatted a little bit back and forth online, but it's our first live conversation.
Face to face,
and
yeah.
Now it's filmed, so I can capture this moment forever.
Very cool.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. And all the best to you. And good luck with the podcast forward from here. And it was good talking to you.
Thanks so much, man. And thanks for everybody tuning in. Thanks for watching. FlowAnastasia.com for some merch. Got to shamelessly plug Sending Signals new t-shirts. Hello. And then all Mefjus social media links and stuff will be in the description. So thanks again for checking it out. Hope you're doing all right. Sending lots of love. Mwah, mwah.
Bye.